You want to listen to a podcast?
By who?
Georgia GOP Congressman Doug Collins.
How is it?
The greatest thing I have ever heard in my whole life.
I could not believe my ears.
In this house, wherever the rules are disregarded, chaos and mob rule. It has been said today, where is bravery? I'll tell you where bravery is found and courage is found. It's found in this minority who has lived through the last year of nothing but rules being broken, people being put down, questions not being answered. And this majority say, be damned with anything else. We're going to impeach and do whatever we want to do. Why? Because we won an election. I guarantee you, one day you'll be back in the minority and it ain't gonna be that fun.
All right, good morning. Good morning, folks. It is Friday, August 9th, and my name is Chip Lake. I will be guest hosting Friday's Finest today with our illustrious producer, James, who will join us in just a second. I know when James and I were on last week at this time, we promised that our fearless leader, Doug Collins, would be back on Friday, and that was the plan. Until early this morning, really late last night when Doug had some tooth issues. And he is at the dentist, sitting in a dentist chair, probably under Novocaine right now. So, James, I don't know that well, maybe he would. I would say I don't know that Doug would be a good host under Novocaine, but that might be when Doug's the best host. But the bottom line is, since Doug is getting emergency dental work, he is not going to be able to join us today. And so it will be myself and James joining us here right after the break. And we got a lot to talk about today. Just earlier this week, although it does seem like it's kind of been out there for a little bit longer than just Tuesday this week. But Kamala Harris picked her vice presidential nominee, Governor Tim Walz from Minnesota. And we will talk about that pick, what went into it, what I think it means moving forward for the presidential campaign. And then we will talk about Donald Trump being in Georgia, Doug and I's home state this week. Had a rally Saturday at the same venue that Kamala Harris had her rally at 4 days earlier. And as with every time former President Trump speaks, a lot of people were listening, and he had some controversial comments about our state's governor, which we'll talk about. And then we haven't talked about the Olympics a lot. The Olympics is kind of winding down. They're in their last week. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Noah Lyles and what he accomplished today. And then we'll talk a little bit of NFL training camp. Brandon Ayuk, interested to see how that story finishes up. The Chicago White Sox this month had a 21-game losing streak, which is kind of hard to do. It's really hard to do, especially in baseball. But they just recently won their first game after losing 21, and it was only after they won a game and ended their losing streak that they parted ways with their manager, which was kind of strange. So we'll talk about that. And we'll talk about fantasy football too. So stick with us. We'll be right back after the break. Doug Collins Podcast.
You might have heard Mike Lindell and MyPillow no longer have the support of the box stores or the shopping channels as the way they used to. They've been part of the cancel culture, so they want to pass the savings directly on to you by having a $25 extravaganza. When Mike started MyPillow, it was just one product company. With the help of his dedicated employees, they now have hundreds of products. Some of you may not even know about that. So to get the word out, I want to invite my listeners to check out the $25 extravaganza. 2-pack multi-pillow use My Pillows are just $25. My Pillow sandals, $25. There's 6-pack of towel sets, $25. Brand new 4-pack dish towels. You guessed it, just $25. And for the first time ever, the My Pillows with all new Giza fabric, just $25. All orders over $75 will see free shipping too. This amazing offer won't last long, so go to mypillow.com and use the promo code Collins, that's COLLINS, or call 800-986-3994 today. That's promo code Collins. Hey, inflation's at a 40-year high. The stock market looks more uncertain than ever. The new central bank digital currency is on its way and could be the government's ultimate surveillance tool against Americans. It looks like the government is playing games with your savings and retirement. So what are you going to do to help protect yourself? Did you know that you can have physical gold and silver into your IRA or 401k with zero tax or penalties? Millions of Americans are doing this right now for protection, and you should think about it too. A company I trust and recommend is Preserve Gold. They will go all over your options and make sure the process of acquiring precious metals is simple and easy. So if you're looking to help protect your retirement with a trustworthy company, request your free investment guide from the experts at Preserve Gold. Preserve Gold is accredited by the Better Business Bureau, and they have hundreds of 5-star reviews, so you know that you're in good hands. Just text Collins, Collins, to 50505. As an exclusive offer for my listeners, they'll get up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualifying purchase on a retirement account rollover. So don't wait. Text Collins to 50505 today and get your free gold and silver investment guide and take the first step. Again, text Collins to 50505 to get your free guide from the good people at Preserve Gold.
All right, folks, thanks for being with us. As I had mentioned, I want to welcome James back to the podcast. James, it was just you and I last week, and as a result of a very untimely tooth injury and a dentist appointment, it's you and me again. Although you're
sounds a little shady though.
It's a little no, it's real.
Tooth injury sounds shady. I would have said car accident. I would have lied about a lot of things. Actually, I will tell this one now that it's been 5 years since I've said this lie. At least I was late for work for like the fourth time in a row. I couldn't get to work on time. I was having a bad week. And they were just fed up. So I made up a lie that my dog was attacked by a possum and that I had to punch the possum in the face because I thought that's the only thing that's too far to like think that I would make that up. Yeah, it wasn't. They didn't believe me and they wrote me up and we had like this huge argument. And then I literally made my brother send me a photo of a scratch on my dog, which she did have, which is what made me think of it. So I was a massive liar back then, and I just don't believe. I think the thing is, I just don't believe that Doug's in the dental chair. I think he is probably still doing Novocaine or morphine or whatever you take. I just don't think he's in the dental chair.
Well,
He's just having a good
You
time.
know, I told him it would be okay. You know, we could wait to actually record this until he was done with the Novocaine, and he didn't think that was a very good idea.
Yeah, no, which means he's again a liar. He just didn't want to hang out today, and that's what it. He did discuss it, but we'll get into it. Let's do it.
So, look, it's Friday's finest, but it was only 3 days ago that Kamala Harris picked the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, to be her nominee. And I got to say, I wasn't at the dentist, but I was at a doctor's appointment waiting room when that text came in. And I got to say, I was surprised a little bit. I probably shouldn't have been surprised in hindsight, given the fact that, you know, the Hamas wing or the Palestinian wing, the liberal wing, the progressive wing, and that's a big wing in the Democratic Party, really put a lot of pressure on her, not only to select Tim Walz from Minnesota, but also not to select the governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro,
he's Jewish. Is that the idea?
Jewish.
So that was an actual that's something I heard recently that was a reason not to pick him was that he was Jewish because of the divisiveness right now in the Middle East. Is that the going? Okay,
look,
all right.
They'll deny it until they're blue in the face, but let's not sugarcoat it. You know, me being surprised on Tuesday, I really shouldn't have been in hindsight, knowing that everything was gone because, you know, if you don't pick Josh Shapiro, you don't have to answer any of the questions about his Jewish faith.
And you also, though, big missed opportunity for the DEI community.
No, it was, and I tell you, when you're looking at how we choose our president in this country, yes, I mean everybody gets to vote. It's one person, one vote in 50 states, but let's be serious. There's really only about 4 or 5 states that matter in this election, and that's Georgia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada. It's those states, right? And the other states are likely going to play out the way they did 4 years ago, and maybe those 5 states that I just mentioned play out, the way they did. But those are 5 states that Donald Trump won 7 years ago that he lost 3 years ago. And so, yes, as Republicans, we were fully anticipating a pick from Kamala Harris of Josh Shapiro, which I thought would have made a lot of sense for her politically. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy that as somebody who's voting for Donald Trump, I'm pretty happy that the mayor of, or excuse me, the governor of Pennsylvania didn't get chosen, and they went and chose a man who they are trying to sell as a military man, a hunter, an everyday guy, a guy that you want to have a beer with. And look, I'll have a beer with anybody, right? So I mean, that doesn't narrow it down for me. There's very few people I won't have a beer with.
Yeah,
But
you got to go out of your way to make me not have a beer with you.
But I mean, make no mistake about it. I mean, this guy, signed a bill that mandated that tampons be placed in boys' bathrooms at public schools all across the state of Minnesota. I mean, he's not necessarily middle of the road. His voting record might have reflected that when he was in Congress, because he only represented a sliver of the state of Minnesota. But now as governor, he represents the entire state of Minnesota. And he was also the governor during the George Floyd unrest, at which point in time, he told his own National Guard, which every governor controls, to not intervene in the burning down of I guess Minneapolis is not the capital city, St. Paul is, but Minneapolis is the biggest city in Minnesota, and he told the National Guard to stand down. So look, we'll see a lot of time. We're about 87 days out now, James. So, while that doesn't seem like a lot of time, it's plenty of time to get to know somebody, at least when there's going to be so much media, paid media and earned media surrounding Tim Walz. But I got to say, on first blush, it certainly looks like a gift to Republicans. And I'm pretty happy that they didn't choose the very popular, more moderate, probably governor of
well, that's what I wanted to bring up, actually, because from everything I've seen, and I don't watch regular news. I would rather die than watch the news at this point in my life. Just give me the Pat McAfee show and let me be happy. But from the few sources I do listen to, which they just painted this man the way you said originally, was that he's a hunter, everyday guy, have a beer with, whatever. But also, I've seen him painted as extremely liberal, like at the level of Kamala Harris, like full. So it felt like they said, you ever hear that expression in sports where it's like, don't strengthen your weaknesses, strengthen your strengths.
Yeah.
That's how it felt like they went into this.
Yeah.
Is that they said, and look, the Shapiro thing is probably because tensions are insane right now in the Middle East, beyond belief. And that, unfortunately, a man who's literal Jewish faith, who probably isn't, most people aren't that strong in their faith that I've met. So you never know. He could have just not even really cared about it, but it is his background. They chose this guy, Tim Walz, and I knew nothing about him. I didn't even know he existed until I saw Kamala Harris chooses this guy from Minnesota. So I'm just curious, do you think that's their plan, is like, we are going to just throw everything at this as far left as we can go, like make it clear our stances. There is no jabbing between the two of us. This is what we're doing. This is our platform. That's that.
110%. And look, Kate Bedingfield, who is used to be I believe she was the press secretary for Biden Harris's first run 4 years ago, and then she went into the administration. She's actually from Metro Atlanta, big Democrat operative, but she's talented. She knows what she's talking about. And, she is a contributor now to CNN. And she went on CNN the other night and said, look, guys, when this was Tuesday night, I think, when I saw the segment that she was participating in. And she said, look, guys, I'm not afraid as a Democrat at all. I'm not saying I agree with what she said, but I'm just explaining to you their mindset, where I think their mindset is right now. She says, I'm not afraid of a race where Republicans are trying to where Republicans are trying to call us the party of being extreme when their nominee is Donald Trump. And that's what their talking point is. Now,
sure.
I hear that. I get it. You know, I guess we'll find out over time. How that ends up working. But they're gonna. I can tell you one thing for certain. They're going to have to spend a lot of time on defense with that attack, and they really wouldn't have had to spend any time on defense with that attack had they gone with a Andy Bashir of Kentucky, a Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, a Roy Cooper of North Carolina. But they're equally as interested, not more interested, because that's probably an unfair assertion. But I think they're equally interested in making their base happy in winning an election. And in the real world, we call that you want to have your cake and eat it too.
Correct.
And they do want to have their cake and eat it too. We all want to have
Who
our
doesn't?
cake and eat it too. And I guess we'll know in 90 days if they're able to do that, because if Kamala Harris is able to pull out a victory in this election cycle, she didn't have to make concessions with her VP pick to win the race.
Right.
As I said, if I don't have a crystal ball to know what's going to happen the first Tuesday in November, I still think this race is a toss-up. Despite
I don't think we've had a toss-up.
Yeah,
I don't think we've had a toss-up like this in quite some time.
That's right.
And I'll tell you why. This is just how I feel about it. And I want to focus on something else real quick, because I want to curious your actual opinion on this. But we haven't had a toss-up because the Hillary one with Trump. No one thought Trump would win that election. I don't care what you say. There is not a single person on the left that thought Trump had that election at all.
That's correct. And
Trump wins.
And very few people on the right. In fact, I'm convinced Donald Trump went into election night not thinking he was going to.
No, right. And then, of course, on the Biden, I didn't think Trump had a shot in that Biden election when Biden was elected, because I saw they were like, no, we can't allow Trump to be president again. They made that was basically it, is we can't allow this person to be president again. So I thought it was a landslide going to Biden, and it ended up sort of being that, not totally. This is the first time since Bush, Al Gore, maybe, and I was a kid, that I can think of that people are going into this like, oh, this might be a 50-50 last minute buzzer beater sort of situation, because a lot of the time it just feels like there's like a clear direction we're going in, where I think we're very clearly divided. And this is why I brought that up to bring this up. When I first saw Tim Walz, and I know this is stereotyping, I was like, that dude's Republican. Mm-hmm. That was my first older white-haired gentleman from Minnesota. I heard that stupid, silly Minnesota accent where everyone's talking like this and doing their thing. That's what I was hearing, and that's what I'm seeing. And if you are on the fence about Donald Trump, and you're on the fence about, you're like, I don't know, do I want to vote for Kamala Harris? She's so strong this way. But if you see Tim Walz and you said, hey, I might be able to have a beer with that guy, maybe he'll shake my hand, Bob. It sort of humanizes the party the way, because I don't think either of these parties have really felt humanized lately. I feel like there's a lot of, I know that's probably like a weird
It's very
take,
tribal.
It does. I mean, the other night with that kid, we've had him on multiple shows that I've done, but Kyle Rittenhouse decided to say, I'm not sure I want to vote for Trump because of his stance on guns right now. He's not strong enough on this, and this. Right now, the whole point of having this country is that he can say that and it's okay.
Sure.
And the internet went after him.
They
bullied him into apologizing, which honestly is one of those things I can't get over. I hated it. I saw it. Somebody sent it to me, another host of ours, and was like, that's what you were talking about. The Trump faithful are terrifying to me. The same way other faithfuls have been terrifying. It's almost Jim Jones-like faith. It does scare me a little bit, because they all said, okay, we can stop. There was a little tweet, and I'll try to find it and put it up on here, that said, okay, hold on. You know what? Let me find this, because I can cut this. This is my job. I have to read it because it's actually kind of sickening when you think about this big race. Let's see. It's right here. Okay. Kyle, this is from someone. I'm not going to read who it's from. I don't care. Kyle Rittenhouse apologized and came back to MAGA. We can stop attacking him now. This is why you have to put intense pressure on people. He likely saw everything flash before his eyes and came home to where he belongs. Good on him. He better prove himself loyal now until November 5th. Now, Chip, you could be Republican, Democrat, whatever. That's not okay. I'm sorry. To me, that's not okay. And that's the scary part about this, because I feel like it's on both sides. We just don't see it as much on the other side. But
well, I tell you, James, on that note, that very well could have been what was in Donald Trump's head when he came to Georgia on Saturday of last week and did an event at the Convocation Center at Georgia State University, which, for those that are familiar with downtown Atlanta, there's where the Braves used to play baseball and where the state capitol is. There used to be a parking lot, and 3 years ago they built an arena for the college basketball team to play in, and that's where the governor was. That's where the governor's inauguration was 2 years ago, year and a half ago. That's where Georgia State plays baseball now. That's where I think the Ringling Brothers Circus comes in. It's new. It's a new venue, relatively new, 3 years old, and he came down. And it really has been the first time that Trump has been to the state in, well over 2 months, maybe 2.5 months. And he came in for Brian Jack, who was a former aide to the president who was running for Congress in a primary and ended up getting Trump's support and winning. And kind of bizarre. He came down on Saturday, and Doug was at the event, and the president recognized Doug and told him to stand up, and Doug really got a nice shout out. But when the president first took the stage at the event, he spent the first 10 to 12 minutes attacking the governor of Georgia, who's a Republican, Brian Kemp, who, it's no secret, Brian Kemp and Donald Trump don't like each other, and they
got beef. Fair enough.
Look, it's politics. It's human nature. I mean, there's a lot of people that I probably disagree. I'm a Republican. I work to get Republicans elected, but there's a lot of people in my party I don't like that I would vote for. There's a lot of people in my party I don't like who I have voted for. And, Brian Kemp, for those of you who don't know, took the ire of President Trump, I guess, 2.5, 3 years ago, almost 3.5 years ago now, James, when, the president didn't think that he did enough to help him after the election, after he'd lost by 12,000 votes. And Trump was convinced that there was some voter fraud. We were not successful at proving any of that or getting any of those votes overturned. But, Donald Trump still to this day believes very strongly. And Brian Kemp and he just saw, differently on that. And I thought that it would have been behind us, but here we are 90 days out. And we talked about what a missed opportunity it was for Kamala Harris not to pick Josh Shapiro if she needed Pennsylvania. But I think it was also a little bit unfortunate for, Donald Trump to come and do that. I mean, look, I've certainly had my disagreements with the governor. Doug Collins has, obviously well known. Doug, wanted to get the appointment for the U.S. Senate seat after Johnny Isakson passed. I think Doug should have gotten it. And I think the governor should have given Doug a little bit more serious consideration. But it's the governor's pick, and the governor did not. He picked somebody else, and it's created problems. But, man, James, we're 3.5 years removed from that, even longer in Doug's case, and we're still we're still sitting here talking about it. And there's 50 states in this country. And this election was decided by under 12,500 votes.
Right.
And to think that we got to go into the next 90 days not all being united seems like a missed opportunity. And Donald Trump just got done. We're taping this on Thursday. It will air on Friday and Friday's Finest. But he just got done with a press conference that he finished at Mar-a-Lago at about an hour and 10 minutes. And he's not backing away from any of those comments for the governor. So, as I said, I don't have a crystal ball to know how this is going to play out, but it certainly looks like It certainly looks like it's going to be tough for all of us to be united as we get to the ballot box in a state that's so
100%.
important. I just think that's unfortunate because I certainly, as a resident of the state of Georgia, don't want to wake up the morning after the election knowing that Kamala Harris is president because we couldn't win Georgia.
Well, yeah, and if you're Trump, that seems like an odd choice, knowing how even this is now. Like, had he said that when Biden was still in his, what people probably would have been like, yeah, whatever, it's fine. He's not going to lose Georgia because of that. And I'm not saying he's going to lose Georgia, but it is a 50-50 community now. It's not as, surefire right Republican as it. I don't know, and I don't know how long the history of Georgia has been Republican. I'm assuming it's been quite some time, but it's not surefire. And I honestly, these days, I mean, the fact that when you can say Texas isn't surefire, the world is coming to a, there used to just be like, we knew, like, okay, Florida's going to do this, Texas is going to do this. I just think the world's changed so much.
Yeah.
And I think, again, social media's got so much to do with it. But like, like someone like President Trump goes on Aiden, I think it's Aiden Ross. Is that the kid's name?
Yes. Aiden
Ross. Podcaster, right?
That's
like
right.
That is the equivalent of going on like I guess 60 Minutes in the 90s. Like that's what it is now. Sure. But the viewership is now younger because kids don't care about 60 Minutes. So now all the adults are finding a way to get to see that interview, and kids are seeing it. And that's the world we live in. So like, maybe, a place that would, kids that are 18, 19 years old that are just voting for the first time. I mean, I don't know how you were, Chip. You guys are in politics, so maybe it's very different. But when I was a kid, I didn't know I wanted to vote. When I was 18, it didn't matter to me as much as it, maybe mattered to others. But like now with the way the internet, like I feel like kids are definitely going to go vote.
Oh yeah.
It would be weird if you didn't, because of how you have to get it. Like they've jammed that down people's throats as getting out and vote. Now I think it's important to do so. I just don't think it's important to tell people who to vote for. If you're jamming that, just tell them like get out and vote because your vote matters. That's all it should be. But of course, we can't do that because that would be insane.
No, and look, there's so many ways to get to drive messages to those younger voters that 15, 20 years ago didn't exist, right?
Not even remotely.
Yeah.
The only way you just got a newspaper thrown at your door. That's not right. The world we live in anymore.
Not the world we live in anymore.
No, it's the moment they open their phone
thrown at their door in the digital age society. So, look, I take a look at polling every morning to see kind of what the RPC, the Real Clear Politics polling.
Do those matter? Like and that poll, like I'm always so curious because that's your job, right? That's part of part of your career. When you look at that polling, like, all right, so say you got a candidate that you're trying to get in office, right? And you can see the polls of what they have going on, right? How often are you telling them that information, or are you?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, very few races, James, have our RCP polling averages.
Sure.
Because you either got to be running for president, governor, or U.S. senator in order to have that much attention paid to that. So, as a political person, I'm looking at trends more than I am. Okay, what were the numbers on this poll and this poll, right? Because if the independent polls, the Republican polls, and the Democratic polls, I'll give you a perfect example. Rasmussen came out today with a poll that has Trump up 5. Well, Rasmussen had a poll 2 weeks ago that had Trump up 9. So I know that even though Rasmussen's polling is completely different than the CNN All Clear Politics, which has the race tied, I know that, the movement is all moving in one direction.
Right. It's getting closer and closer and closer.
Exactly. So that shouldn't be a surprise, in the fact that, not only does Kamala Harris have a new, she just picked her vice president, but look, she's a new candidate. I mean, it's one thing to be somebody's VP who's president, and it's another thing to now all of a sudden find yourself, I think 110 days out or 105 days out is when she became the nominee of her party. So, look, these are,
that's a weird saying it like that is
man,
weird.
I mean, and we're within a 3-month window now. I mean, we're just within maybe 89 days.
Wow.
And you know,
this is never. There's no precedent for this, right?
What's that?
There's no precedent for this, right? Because Lyndon B. Johnson dropped out, so this doesn't exist.
There is no precedent for this, and I can assure you, I can't sit here today, and nobody really can, and tell you definitively what's going to happen. But I can tell you what the game on the field is going to look like, and it's going to be a muddy field. There's going to be a lot of rain. There might be a lightning delay.
A little bit of blood.
There's going to be a couple players taking off on stretchers. There's going to be targeting calls that the referees do.
You know what it's going to look like?
There'll be a lot of flags, a lot of whistles.
It's going to look like an old NFL Films game where they have the players on the sideline wrapped in tape when they're breathing and you can see it. They're going to have that. That's going to – I don't know when they're going to debate. I know they have 2 set up or something. I could be wrong.
Well, breaking news that hit, and again, we're recording late Thursday, and I know this will run on Friday, but it does look like ABC is the first affiliate to reach an agreement with both campaigns on the format, the date, and the venue. And so I believe there'll be a minimum of 2. Possibly 3. I think I think everybody would like to see 3, but ABC has the first to reach an agreement. I think NBC will be behind them, and then we'll see if the Harris campaign agrees to a Fox News debate.
Want to be clear about this, guys. The Trump you saw at the first debate where he let Biden hang himself will not exist during this debate.
It'd be a little different strategy.
When they you know what it's going to be? It's going to be when Michael Jordan returned wearing number 45.
Yeah.
And then somebody said, "You don't look like 40." He's like, "You're not as good." Nick Anderson said, "You're not as good as 45." So he showed up in his warm up in 45, took it off, and was wearing 23 underneath. That is what you're going to get during this debate. That man's going to sling some horrifying things at Kamala or Kamala. I forget how to say it sometimes. I feel like an idiot, but I'm just. Yeah, I think it's going to be a wild. I really think we're going to get one of those Hillary debates where we're cutting it up and putting it on Instagram to no end. It's going to be crazy.
Look, these debates are normally, except for people like me and Doug and you and other. I mean, these debates are normally very dry and very boring, but we watch them anyway.
Part of a job.
Part of the job. But whether you like Donald Trump or hate Donald Trump, he's certainly made debates a lot more interesting.
You remember, the comedian Shane Gillis?
Yes.
He does a bit on him. If you ever get a chance, just watch his bit on, if anyone's listening, his bit on Donald Trump as when he showed up to the debates and all. He made it was the joke idea. The idea of the joke is that all these guys were prepared for regular political debate, and Trump just showed up and started making fun of everybody, and they didn't know what to do with themselves. We do know now what to do, and so does Kamala. So I really think it's going to be a dog-eat-dog fight. Like I think they're going to go. I think it's going to get real ugly. I honestly do think it's going to be like really ugly. It'll be both sides will say the other one was super disrespectful. That's the only way this thing ends.
They will. But
speaking of disrespect,
we get to watch it in real time, and I enjoy watching the campaign on TV and then following Twitter during the debate because Twitter was made for it was made for presidential debates, and it was made for situations like Scotty Scheffler's arrest in Louisville. I mean, anytime something like that.
If you're a fan of Barstool, Pardon My Take did one where what would you want Twitter to have been around for? And everyone always says the malice of the palace. Yeah. That is the first thing that comes to mind. I genuinely believe that's what we're going to get out of this debate, a full malice of the palace.
That's exactly right. James, let's pivot a little bit.
Let's do it.
Talk about non-political stuff. Olympics is kind of wrapping up. They're in their last week, but they're still going strong. The medal count, I just pulled up the medal count, which looks a little bit different than it did this morning when I pulled it up.
Yeah.
When I pulled it up this morning, the People's Republic of China had a lead on us.
Which I don't think so.
On gold, and now they don't. So the United States not only leads all countries in the medal count at 103, but we have now taken over the lead in gold medals at 30. China's at 28. Australia's a distant third at 18. But wow,
Yeah.
I mean, these Americans at these Olympics. I mean, what can you say? It's just such
it's the one time
group of athletes.
It sucks because I thought it would be the one time we could all get together, but obviously there's been some controversy surrounding some certain things and people get upset. But we're not going to talk about that right now. What we're going to talk about is that it is the one time we all get together, and you're just like, you know what? I don't care what that person's beliefs are. If they don't get in first, I'm going to be pissed because this is America and we come in first, right? Like that's your thought process. Speaking of, real quick, I'm going to give a score update because I'm watching it during this show.
That's right. We
were down pretty big against Serbia, which we shouldn't be. This is nonsense. I know they got a lot of pros. I'm still pissed. We brought it back 65-59. We're down by 6. Guys, make it set. Make it down by 8. But we really if we lose this game.
How much time's left, James?
There is still 2:21 in the third, and then we got a whole another 10 minutes. We can't lose this game, guys. This was our goal that we were going to walk.
And as I say that, my dogs are about to bark vociferously because we're about to be invaded in the house by my son.
Oh, who is it?
Oh, and they're not. They're not going crazy. All right, they're going a little bit crazy. But
who's invaded?
Oh, my son Carson has invaded, and so normally
Carson, hello.
The dogs start barking.
That's great.
But they've only given a little bit of a bark. But hey, look, I mean,
you wanted to talk about medals,
the medal count, and you'll be able to give us an update on the basketball game, hopefully by the time we wrap up. But
for sure.
Noah Lyles ran the 200 meters today, and everybody just assumed that Noah would finish at the top of the podium, but he did not. He finished in what people would think, I think, would be a disappointing third. But you got to put an asterisk next to that, James, because what we learned right after the race is that the reason he finished third is because 2 days ago he tested positive for COVID, and he ran the 200 meters with the COVID virus. And so
that's a bad man.
You got to give props to a guy. What does he need? Oh, my son wants my credit card.
Oh, what is it? Okay, so just a bunch of freeloaders in the house. Is that what I'm hearing?
Complete freeloaders. He's going to get gas and chicken fingers. So what can I say?
Oh, you know what? That's that's a good reason
for what Noah Lyles did.
Yeah, but that's a good reason to get a credit card is chicken fingers and gas. So that's the most American thing I've ever heard.
That's exactly right. And I tell you, James, NBC, there's no telling what NBC paid to carry the rights to the Olympics. In fact, there's a clause that says if you participate in the Olympic Games as an athlete, you're not allowed to give any interviews outside of NBC until the Olympics have come to a conclusion.
Which is insane.
Unless you get a waiver. Simone Biles got a waiver because she gave her first interview after she was done competing to the Today Show.
Simone Biles is allowed to do whatever she wants.
She can, and then the next day she gave an interview to Coy Wire at CNN, and so obviously she did. But it is kind of funny. It is kind of funny that when the women's gymnastics team was done competing, Hoda Kotb and Al Roker and I'm drawing a blank on Savannah Guthrie got on a plane and went back to New York. And so
they're like, we're good.
They left Craig Melvin in Paris to handle the last 6-7 days of the games.
Yeah, they were like, you got the boring part, right? You can take care of this.
Look, I'm not being critical. I mean, both Hoda and Savannah have young kids, and that's a big commitment to be in another country for 3 weeks. But I did find that funny that today Craig Melvin was interviewing a litany of athletes who had medaled for the United States. But Jordan Childs, who was on the gymnastics team, was back in New York getting interviewed by Hoda and Savannah. So, look,
it's very funny.
Make no mistake about it. Women's gymnastics is what drives the Olympic Games. And if you don't think so, look at the timeline in which Kamala Harris announced her VP, right? She announced Tim Walz as her vice president On Tuesday morning of this week, guess what finished up on Monday?
Oh, that's so good.
Don't think the two weren't.
I didn't even think about that. So funny.
Don't think it wasn't associated. She waited until the ladies were done with their performance before she decided to pick her VP.
You said you weren't sure what NBC was paying for the Olympics. Do you know what NBC is currently paying America's mascot, known as Snoop? Okay, first of all,
dude, Snoop's awesome.
All right, let's just talk about this.
Snoop.
Some 30 odd years ago, many people would have called Snoop a gangster. They would have called him names. They would have said horrible things about him. The man was on a murder trial, and I grew up listening to his music, and he's one of my favorite people who's ever existed. And the evolution of Snoop Dogg is insane. But the fact that he became America's mascot at the Olympics and everybody loves him. Do you know how much he is getting paid a day to be at the Olympics?
Dude, he's so much fun. So, do you know what they're paying him? I mean,
I do know what they're paying him every day. $500,000 a day. Now,
holy cow.
I don't want to say that anyone is worth $500,000 a day to do anything realistically. I don't think that number should exist. However, if that's the number, they got every dime's worth of the $500,000 out of
yes,
Snoop.
indeed.
Because he has been the best part of the Olympics outside of the athletes. And even some of the athletes weren't even. We had the Clark Kent, we had the Turkish man who paints houses. We have had all sorts of situations. This man Snoop has run. Snoop for president obviously is going to be the new thing going forward.
Yeah.
And honestly, a few blunts in the White House might shake things up. But
oh my God,
I'll tell you,
I don't know.
He's been unbelievable.
$500,000 on the games, but maybe so. But speaking of the Turkish shooter, I mean, how many good memes have been out here about the Turkish shooter and Steven Nodarazic?
They're so good.
Talked about it last Friday, but there was one Turkish meme to say, the reporters were left, and I forget the Turkish shooter's name, but he showed up late for his press conference because after he got done shooting, he needed to wipe the prints off the gun and throw it in the lake.
Oh, yeah. They rolled in, too. It was immediate. It took seconds for them to roll in. That's the beauty of the internet sometimes. I did want to bring something up real quick, and we can talk about this with Doug next week as well. But football season's starting, and we have we're announcing our team. I'm not sure how this is going to go with the person I've named it after, and I haven't got his permission yet, but I'm naming it that anyway. We have a podcast we have a fantasy football team called Chan Gailey's Favorite Podcast. Mainly because I don't see Chan Gailey on any other podcast, so this has to be his favorite.
I would agree with that, and I think he would agree with that as well.
Now, this is a man who goes golfing with Nick Saban. Like, he's cool as hell, all right? And so we're naming it after him because we love him. Coach, you're the man. In this league is me, you, and Doug. Doug's kids, his two kids. Two friends of mine from out east. And then we have three famous people, semi-famous. I mean, we can call them famous because they're on the television. Two Fox News hosts and one of our favorite guests, Michelle Tafoya.
Yes, indeed.
And they are. I don't know the other two people. I'm sure I'll get to know them when we trash talk. But I love Michelle. She's one of my favorites.
She's great.
They haven't jumped in yet to the league. There's just three missing spots, and I find it a little bit rude. And it upsets me a bit that the quote unquote talent. That's right. I'm using the word talent right now to piss everybody off because I know that if you hear those words, you know you've done something wrong.
That's right.
Haven't signed up, and I'm kind of pissed. They're invited. They're ready to go, and I need them to join so we can get a group chat where we start figuring out when we're going to draft this thing. But it is going.
It'll
be a weekly discussion on this show.
it's always the last ones to get in. They wait till the last minute, and then they
Yeah,
make.
no, they're gonna. Oh, you ready to draft? Yeah.
That's
If
right.
if one of them auto drafts, I'm gonna
Yeah.
be pissed. That's all I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I tell you, James, as poorly, in order to be a good fantasy football owner, you have to be many things, but you also have to get lucky a little bit more than maybe your co-owner, the other owners and the other
Seventh
teams.
round, Lamar Jackson, 2018, 2019. You're looking at him right here.
Yeah,
Okay,
something like that. And the teams that normally do really well are normally, they're less prone to having injuries than,
correct.
let's say, other teams, because that happens. And so for years, I always named my team the All ACL team because I feel like I owe it to my first or second round draft pick because they always get ACL tears after I've drafted them. And so, I have done such a poor job the last 2 years. It's really been, look, I've been playing fantasy football 25 years. I feel like the White Sox right now, right?
How many championships do you have in those 25 years?
6.
Oh, that's good. Those are good numbers, dude. There are teams. The Minnesota Vikings would love to have a championship in their 50 some odd years of existence. So
they would, but in the genre of what have you done for me lately, the natives are getting restless. And so I've actually considered an auto draft and I'm in 3 fantasy football leagues, and I've actually considered an auto draft for a random one of them, thinking
you auto draft in our league, Chip, and I will
not do it in our league.
I will take you off the list.
It's our first year. Because it's our first year. You can never auto draft if it's your first year. But,
also, I want to talk, smack about
yeah. But I tell you, in a league I was in last year, a guy had to auto draft because something came up that was he wanted to draft. He'd done all this research and he was dying to do it. And then something came up with work or his kids or something, and he asked us to move the draft, and we did the draft. I think the night of the first game. It was Thursday. We couldn't move the draft. I mean, God, they're kicking off at 8:30, and we're doing the draft at 6:00. That's how long we waited. And he ended up auto drafting. He won the league.
Oh, I would have lost it. I would have thrown all my stuff because you do all that research for no reason, and it's nonsense.
Well, but he won the league. But at the end of the year, only half the team members were on his roster on the draft, right? I mean, he was very active in trades and
he did the work
in the free agent markets and things like an ad drop and stuff like that. So I mean, it's not like he just his team was static. But man, I tell you what, it's I need things to. This is the year to turn it around, and I'm so excited to be in 3 leagues. I love this time of year. I love.
It's so fun to be ready to draft, right?
And you know what? As much as I bitch about rooting for a player in one league and rooting against them in another, that's the fun part of it. Because when you get to Monday Night Football, sometimes you can all right, I need Deebo Samuel to get me 12 points, but no more than 19.
Yes, right. And what's really fun is because I know I'm a diehard Vikings fan. Is that anxiety of I really need the wide receiver on the opposing team to get me 50 yards and a touchdown, but I'd really prefer just 100 yards because I really don't want to lose this game right now. Now this year's a good one because the Vikings are supposed to not be good, so I won't feel terrible. However, next year when J.J. McCarthy, by the way, my team is already named J.J. to J.J. Everybody needs to know that. That's going to be my life from now on. But emotionally, I am invested. Now, I have 3. This is the second league I'm going to be the commissioner of because that's what I do. I want to be very clear that the rules are set up. I'm going to change the playoff settings. We're going to have, just so everyone knows, not that anyone cares, but it's 2 flexes, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, tight end, kicker, punter, and quarterback. It's going to be a lot of fun. To be clear, my emotional state coming into the week every week is going to change based off me losing to one of you idiots. And I got to be honest, I'm not going to be in a good mood when especially when I lose to Doug, because I know he's brutal. People don't know this about Doug, and we're going to talk about him because we're talking behind his back right now. We all know he's not going to listen to this.
But he can be a sore winner.
Doug is a sore winner for sure. Doug has spent the majority of the offseason knowing it's going to piss me off, sending me JJ McCarthy stats.
Oh, yes, he has. Yes, he has.
And I get it.
Yes,
but I just want to say this now while we're on the podcast. I hope Georgia loses every game this season because I'm sick of it. I'm sick of his homer attitude.
Doug loses a game in which he plays against somebody who Caleb Williams is their backup quarterback, but their starting quarterback's on a bye or they're out that week, and Caleb Williams starts and Doug loses by 4 points.
You're also forgetting one more person who I hope to draft, and that's when I play him starting Anthony Richardson. Anthony, because he spent how many episodes talking about him being a bust.
Yes.
And I agree. I hope you know what? Let's let it be back-to-back weeks. Yeah. Anthony Richardson kills him the first, Caleb the second, and during both those weeks, Georgia's on a 2-game losing streak, and Kirk Cousins tears his ACL again. That's what we're hoping for right now. We want Judge. We want Doug in a juggernaut of a situation.
Yeah, it's going to be brutal, man, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
Chip, I got to be honest. I know we got to wrap up here, but I've been looking forward to this league for a bit, but I wasn't sure we were going to get Michelle because I really wanted to get Michelle. I wanted to get Chan to approve this league, which eventually we will force that on him. I am excited about the 2 Fox News hosts who I don't know very well. I'm sure I know who they are. We won't name them at the moment until they want to come on and do the show.
We'll name them until they accept their invitation into the league.
Yeah, the only reason we name Michelle is because we know Michelle, but the other 2 will go nameless until they decide to pony up and do their job and just click accept invite because it's not an effort. Okay, Chip went out of his way, for the record, everyone. Chip went out of his way to let me know he couldn't get on, so he figured it out like an adult.
That's right.
This man's giving his credit card for chicken fingers and gas right now. He's signing up for emails. He's doing what he's supposed to do.
That's right.
And right now, we have pulled into within 5. 73. Nope, I take that back. It is 80-73 with 7 minutes to go. I'm sick to my stomach right now.
Dude. All right. Well,
we're going to lose to Jokic?
We got to end the podcast so we can watch the end of that, James, but our time's flown by again. We've done 50 minutes, and we really didn't have tons of content we thought at the beginning. But, and we didn't even get to Brandon Ayuk, which we'll talk about next week because
I'm sure that'll still be going on.
It won't be going away. It won't be going away. So we appreciate everybody listening. Hopefully Doug's teeth are in better condition on Monday and Wednesday of next week than they are today. But we will catch everybody next week on the Doug Collins podcast, and I will specifically see everybody next Friday on Friday's Finest. James, say goodbye. We'll wrap up.
Take care, everybody. Turn on the USA game. We need all the help we can get.
That's right.
Rally Caps, boys.
Take care.